The trade is a 26 first for sending away Michael Penix. What are your thoughts, buddy?
I mean, in general.
Welcome to South Harmon.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Dynasty Trade Show. So glad you could join us. We are back again with another one. Just a friendly reminder, you want your deals featured on this show, patreon.com/South Harmon. $5 tiers where you want to be. Drop your trades. We'll discuss them, break them down, make fun of you, or like some of these new patrons who keep dropping them in here, absolute pure theft. So if you just want us to, diddy up, we can do that too. And as always, Adam, look, we're rocking some fresh gear. Well, I only got the hat. You got the hat. You got the shirt. Listen, just a little teaser, all right? It's not available yet. Maybe down the road, though. D-Walk, I see you, all right? Just down the road, you might have access to it. But if you can't get that, go check out our sponsors, Certified Shit. Fanatics has got you covered. Certified sh.it. All these dope jerseys coming out. We just had a good question for Jay Jackson in the Discord about which white Minnesota Vikings jersey he should get.
Great one.
JJ McCarthy. No offense, Justin Jefferson. JJ McCarthy, that 9 looks clean as fuck. And then, if you want to get something signed, you want some of that dope memorabilia like this shit I got behind me, signed sh.it. Go check out our dope-ass sponsors, Ultimate Autographs. Lots of cool stuff going over there. Adam, big news coming up. We just realized before we hit the record button, the expo is fast approaching. We're going to be together in person.
At last. Back again.
Out. Speaking of which, me and Fizz had a moment today. Fizz wanted to send me some money for the Airbnb. I told him, here's my Venmo. And, anybody who's checked out Fizzle Fridays with me and him, you know that we acknowledge the differences between me and Fizz. And he goes, you damn white people in your Venmo. So real funny story about that. I told that same thing to the old white guy that I work with in my office. And he's like, that ain't real, is it? I said, no, man. It's clear and defined. Fizz and I have figured this out. White people prefer Venmo. Black people like Cash App. All right? It's a guaranteed thing. He goes, that can't be true. We got a really cool guy. Hopefully, I talked to him today, too. My buddy Red from work might be coming out. Red, a rapper. Fizz and him know some of the same people, so it'd be really cool for me and Red to drive out. Red could stay with us. He's a big sports gambler. Shout out Red. I said, go ask Red. go ask Red if he's got Cash App or Venmo. Let me know what he says.
I want to say it's pretty clear and defined Cash App.
I didn't hear back from Brett, the white guy that I told to go ask him. But later on, I saw Red, and he goes, hey, why was Brett asking me if I had Cash App or Venmo? I said, first off, what'd you tell him? He goes, Cash App, bro. Like, I said, I knew it. I knew it, man. Cash App, you want to sponsor this show? We're friendly, all right? Venmo, though, listen, you got a soft spot in my heart. I prefer Venmo.
Yeah, over here, I mean, I'll be honest. I have Venmo. I don't have Cash App, but I'm willing to, I'm willing to get Cash App if that's what it takes,
And old people use PayPal.
I feel like for money moves, ATM, Cash App. I mean, come on, what a perfect partner. Come on, would that be awesome?
ATM's money moves brought to you by Cash App.
Mike, all right.
Rolls
Speaking of which,
top.
Let's go see if I made a money move.
Let's go.
I don't actually know if I'm curious what you think, buddy. Really, genuinely. Let's go take a look. You tell me, Mike. This is a startup trade, and it's interesting because the details are not complete. One of these pieces has been drafted. So this is a 12-team Superflex PPR lineup, start 11. All right. Eric Van Eck is commissioned in the league. He and I are co-managing, working on a special project. Can't divulge all the info yet, but working on some stuff. And Mike, with the start 11, right? Obviously, we have the 103. We get Lamar on the way back at the 210, thinking about some different things, and we're sitting there, and I told him, I said, based on the people on the board, I'd prefer Nico Collins, and he was kind of in agreement, right? But this offer comes in. Mike, where from the 210, we would have to drop back to the 306, right? Mm-hmm. And in order to do so, we will jump up from the 1003 to the 607, especially with the start 11. To me, it was, if we're going to actually select Nico Collins here, the difference at the 306 is we just did a mock yesterday. I think there's very much going to be a receiver, maybe not quite that we like as much as Nico, but not very far off. And I think the 607 is a sizable jump up from the 1003. part of the reason we make the deal. And here's the thing: if the receivers, all those guys that are in the range of the Garrett Wilsons, the JSNs, all those guys end up being gone, you know what that means? You force our hand and you force me to take a quarterback. I don't hate the deal at all either. That was kind of the thinking that goes into it. I'm curious your thoughts just on the surface here.
I like that process, right? Like if you want to break this down, something that hasn't come to full fruition yet, right? And WoRP will help you on this one too. But what I can definitely tell you, we did the mock draft last night on AMA, right? Startup mock draft.
Yep.
You get to that mid to late second round, up through like the fourth round, you're kind of in like the same tier of dudes. In reality, it's a pretty big tier of like, okay, I do prefer this guy, but how much farther off am I versus it? And here's a good one to speak of. You kind of already mentioned it. 210 would be Nico Collins, right? Like
by the way, that one is exactly, and he did end up trading for and selecting Nico, so it does become Nico, by the way. But yeah,
all right. This is just based on ADP. The next wide receiver, 306 or later, right around that pick that you could have the choice of: JSN, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Travis Hunter. And for me, right off the rip, I'm like, listen, I love Nico. I prefer Nico to all those guys. But
sure.
You told me that's what I got to go down to. All right, now we're talking. Okay, that's not a very far fall for me. This is a great tier down already. We're talking.
Yeah.
Now you get to the real key point: lineup, and lineup upgrading from the 10th round to the 6th round does matter. I mean, that's a big tier jump. So we're looking at 1003 right now. DeAndre Swift. You and I both like him. We'd like to have him on our team. But what is the 607 currently in ADP, right around that range? Terry McLaurin.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and let's go to the WoRP tool. But just before we do, what I wanted to say is, Mike, now having a 306 and a 310, right, and having a 607 in our other 6th-round pick, I felt the other big thing here is now with 4 picks in those 2 rounds, we don't have to feel forced to take a quarterback, because I can guarantee you in the 6th now we have 2 picks where we can get one as well. So we already have Lamar at the 103, and I felt like this just made us it just made too much sense, because we are starting 11 players, and it's going to give us so much flexibility to kind of see what happens with the quarterback board. You know how that song and dance can go, Mike. Some startups, if you were to lose a whole round, by the time it came back to you, they're like all gone, and that gives us a lot of flexibility there. But let's go take a look at what WoRP says, my friend.
Boom.
South Harmon, the grind. worp.life will change your life. But here's the WoRP for the single year data, Mike. And one of the things off the rip, listen, don't get me wrong. I still would take the elite quarterbacks early, which we did. Lamar at 103, right? But, man, looking at the way that the scoring has gone on here, there's a little bit of points per carry, a little bit of juice to all the positions. Look at this jumbled tier up top, man. Right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's pretty intriguing. And again, this flexibility-wise for me made me feel like it made sense to go ahead and go down from Nico Collins to a guy that, realistically, I think Nico Collins is probably a top 10 receiver. But even if you told me I'm staying in the top 20, my top 20 receivers are at 1.8 basically last year. WoRP.
Yeah.
These are very important players to have all the way down the board here at receiver.
And instead of forcing another quarterback at the 210, right? You see this fall off here. Once you get down past QB 12, to be below a tight end line at times is pretty fucking disgusting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So just give me a dude with a starting job. Give me a guy, right? Unless he's got massive amounts of upside and could, jump into that top tier, those difference maker quarterbacks. I'm very okay then with that strategy of, listen, we were probably going to try to force a quarterback here at the 210 because we felt like this tier was running out, but we could be very wrong. Bo Nix could just be a back end QB1 type, which doesn't really matter too much in this league, right?
Right.
I don't really care. And really, what's the difference between him and, let's say, you get Dak Prescott in the 6th round?
That's what I was just going to say.
I like keeping that flexibility. I really do. Do. By adding that extra pick, you're like, listen, we're probably going. We got Lamar as our hammer quarterback. Now we're going to go backdoor this thing. Pause.
Yep.
We're going to backdoor this thing with a couple other quarterbacks in the 6th round, which opens up our 3rd round to be very flexible on what we want to do for this startup. Whether it's wide receivers, if we feel like there's some value there, or maybe it's running backs, or maybe maybe you get a tight end that falls. And these elite tight ends, these elite guys up here, if there's one of those guys, maybe that's the direction you go to. So
For sure.
I like the fluidity of it. Plus, just upgrading that 10th rounder to a 6th rounder just on the surface that's a fucking win in the lineup league.
Yeah, that was the main thing that, to me, when I saw the details, Mike, I'm like, all right, I don't like and love going from a Nico or a, like, at that point, we were taking, you said it, Bo Nix or a Caleb or somebody like that. Like, to me, the 306 is close enough to where, sure, I prefer Nico or the two, whatever I would take at the 210, but not enough to where, Mike, the 6th round, I don't know if you have, I got all my browsers full for the trade show.
Got them open, baby.
Give me the 6th round. Let's talk around the 607, like 5, 6, 7 players in that range. And then we can talk the 10th round.
Well, there's 2 quarterbacks around that range, Dak Prescott, Bryce Young. Right? And then if we're talking wide receiver choices, Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, Jordan Addison, Emeka Buka, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle. If you want to look tight end-wise, I talked about the elite tight ends. George Kittle happens to be in the 6th round right there.
Yep.
It's tight end 1 candidate. And then running backs, Kenneth Walker, Caleb Johnson, R.J. Harvey, Chuba Hubbard, Joe Mixon. I would say after R.J. Harvey, you got a little step down to your rig.
I agree. There's a couple running backs in that range we'd consider, but realistically, that probably isn't the way to make this trade the most optimal by taking a running back. Right. I agree with you.
But the wide receiver and quarterback options are real nice, and then you do got a tight end option in there too with Mr. George Kittle.
100%. So that was the reasoning for it. I'm curious to see, especially how it folds out now with knowing Tim H grabs Nico Collins and what we get at the 306. It'll be interesting, but it's almost a process thing where, Mike, even if the trade, like if I look at the names afterwards, on that grade, I don't personally like, wow, I love it. I think we're going to be in the scenario where I do. But even if I don't, I know that the flexibility it gave us for both picks in those rounds was the reason why it made sense for us to go ahead and do. So
I think the only way I do this on the other side, right?
Yeah.
No offense, Tim, but the only way I do this, if there's somebody that is at the 210 that shouldn't fucking be at the 210.
Mike, had Puka been there, I might have been like, okay, Eric, maybe we hold off.
CeeDee Lamb.
Right. Right.
Like I've seen crazy drafts too with neighbors, like I'm talking like it's got to be something really good. You start to get in those actual tier of guys who go around there, if it's Saquon, Caleb, Herbert, May, Nico, Drake London, Marv.
That was literally all the options that are on the board. You just named them. Yep.
I don't care. Those are guys that are usually there anyways. It's got to be something where it's like, dude, sometimes this guy goes in the late first, or he's like the 201, 202 easy. Like this guy shouldn't be on the board. Then I'm a little bit more comfortable in the lineup, start 11, making this kind of deal and sacrificing a little bit of that value. But other than that the Nico thing is like, okay, Nico to JSN, I'm okay with that fucking down tier for sure to upgrade the 10 to a 6.
I'm with you. And I think, Mike, I'll say it this way. Lineup start 9, like if you really are bullish on Nico and you don't want to make – I could see maybe not making that trade, but start 11 was just enough starters for it to be like, man, I think that tier up in the 6th round just is too much to pass on. So speaking of, Mike, let's go ahead and stay in the same lane. Tiered PPR, lineup start 11. Let's go to the whorehouse, though. Go take a journey over to Stroh's Whorehouse League. We got Mike George Kittle, speaking of him, in the ADP. Kittle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a 3rd and a 4th. So 3rd and 4th, I mean, they are what they are, but wow. On the other side, it's Terry, it's Dallas Goedert, and we got 2 first going over to Ivan All-Stars. I'm curious here, Mike. This is a big boy deal. Where are you at here on the totality of the deal in this one?
Unless the WoRP tells me differently, right? I don't like this for Stroh. I don't. I think it's too much. Now we can get some context on the picks and the whole works, and that may change, right? But, man, I don't have the moniker Teardown King on Twitter for nothing. This is the kind of shit that I would do all the time. Like, if you really think that the difference between Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown's a first, sign me up. You know that I like George Kittle a lot. We just talked about him. But we just did a show not too long ago talking about, man, Dallas Goedert in like the 14th is a stupid value, right?
Right.
And in general, most leagues, tight ends don't matter enough for me to like really want to jump into that elite tier for the price of a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, like, I'm very comfortable with what the other side got. I don't give a shit. I had to toss in a 3rd or a 4th. Give me the tear downs all day. Like, I'm banking on 80%, 70% of the production for both of those guys. the first, just the random first, without even knowing what they are, even if I assume that they're late, like I'm willing to take that fucking bet on a teardown. I keep a similar production level, and I get liquid draft capital that definitely does go up and improve in value. So I really like the other side, unless WoRP is something crazy or the
Well,
picks, are
let's go.
guaranteed 12 and 11.
Yeah, let's go see. We're gonna have to take a trip to both. So let's go ahead and take a look over at the lab. Here we are, Mike. So Stro is looking to be in a position of dominance, right? It looks like, just based on the keep trade cut value off the rip, right? You're almost 1,000 ahead. But we got Josh Allen, Genty, Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase. Now instead of Terry McLaurin, he's got Amon-Ra, Puka, Kittle in his tight end spot now. He's got McCaffrey, Pickens, Chuba Hubbard rounding out his flexes at the moment. Joe Burrow is his quarterback too. When we get down to the bench, definitely it thins out, right? The bench is not looking anything sexy. He still does have a pick from Donkey's D's, which looks like to be a middle of the road team. One of the things I did notice though, when you were talking about the early or where these picks are, Ricky Wagner's team looks to be like, this is one of those picks, Mike, where we've got some upside here. Now this team could end up contending. It is a contending looking roster, but not without its flaws. I mean, this is one of those teams where, look at this bench, man. We're probably looking at a mid to more likely, if things break, variance-wise, to an early-ish 26 first. When I look at this, I do want to see the WoRP before I make any final calls. I get why he's possibly willing to overpay with the lineup and the situation he's in, but Mike, I don't know if that's how I would have preferred to use it. I need to see the WoRP probably on Kittle as well to make this call realistically. Process-wise, this probably is not the process I would normally like to make. But
the one thing I will,
he's sitting with a ton of usable assets. What do you got?
Great starting roster for sure. The one thing I did notice though, scrolling through the lab, no QB3.
Correct.
And you just sent away two pieces where if something bad does happen to Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, like to just plug and play or go out and get another elite option to put in there and keep this fucking train on the rails and keep it rolling towards dominance, just became a lot harder. Right? Sure. You do got one pick that's in the mid-round, but you tell me how many times one mid-round first the following year, in season is going to buy you an elite option at the quarterback position? Not very often.
He probably, not. As far as an elite option, you're not going to buy that with a first. You might be able to buy a replaceable option, but not an elite one.
I would have much rather preferred to sit there with those 3 firsts burning a hole in my pocket until we get to, November and then see what the hell I wanted to do as far as making that final push, right? And keeping that trump card, that hammer in my pocket. So the WoRP doesn't do this any more favors at all. I'm sitting here staring at it.
Are you? Okay, you've already kind of taken a peek?
Yeah.
Well, here, we'll show everybody just so they can see what Mike saw. Here's the thing, right? If you guaranteed, which you can't do, but if you guaranteed Kittle was a top 3 tight end, sure, you're over 2 WoRP, right? This league, though, to me, is very clearly like where I see a lot of, tiered PPR, small tight end premiums where, dude, you better be an elite option or all of a sudden you're not. Like, that's kind of how this league feels very much at tight end, right?
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I wouldn't have done this one, I don't think. Especially not now in June.
I will say, look, I do love the idea of getting Amon-Ra. The upgrade from McLaurin to Amon-Ra. If you told me I could send my first in this scenario, I'd be aboard that. I don't love, though, Mike, paying potentially a mid first or more for this Kittle thing, personally. I think that's part of the deal, the hang up that I wouldn't have liked to do. Maybe that deal didn't exist. Maybe this is what you would have had to have done in order to get this trade to go through. I would have been all aboard, though, if you told me it's Terry McLaurin in my late first on this type of a team for Amon-Ra straight up. I'm not paying another first, to your point, and to get Kittle at the moment. I think I'd pass.
So we know WoRP isn't like super predictive. What happened last year isn't going to predict exactly what's going to happen in 2025, but you can get a general idea, right? I'm not going to say it's not predictive because there are some things Koopa has done in the past on this podcast. Go check that one out, Grinding the Edge on Saturdays. That does say that WoRP is kind of predictive, kind of. Not by a lot, but there is some things to take away.
You definitely can't try to act like you can predict every single player. That's just not how it works. But there's things and there's different metrics that you can be pretty close on predicting for sure.
The George Kittle from Dallas Goedert thing, if you just took last year and you said we're going to transplant this 1-for-1, that's a 1.4 WoRP upgrade. That's probably worth a first. Okay, let's be honest, that's worth a first.
Sure.
The Amon-Ra thing, while he is much more sexy, and get it, we like him a lot more than Terry McLaurin. If you do that same exercise and transplant it, that's a 0.3 WoRP upgrade from one to the next. From what Terry was doing last year to what Amon-Ra was doing, that is not worth a first at all. Not worth a first at all, especially with the WoRP in this league. When you look at it, like James Conner, also last year, right? Over 2 WoRP. Can you buy him for a first? Fuck yeah, you can. You can buy all the James Conners in the world, right? Like, I can go find that WoRP. It just so happens that in this league, that's at the running back position. Sure. That is the easiest to acquire, right? I do get to trying to upgrade into a couple guys that are over 2 WoRP for this league at the cost of a first, but it just doesn't make much sense when the running backs are the ones that can get you there for much cheaper, right? Like, let me fill out my flexes with all these running backs that are dirt cheap. Connor, Alvin Kamara, right? Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard, David Montgomery, for fuck's sake, was 1.8 WoRP last year. These are all guys that maybe cost a first in rosiest of rosiest outcome leagues. So, like, that's kind of why I want to hold those, because then when we get to September, October, November, I have a pretty good idea of who the running backs are getting 70% of the touches that are scoring 2 WoRP or going to be 2 WoRP guys. And I can easily go add those to my team and bolster my lineup and just live with a Terry McLaurin and a Dallas Goedert in my lineup.
Yeah, I think the reason for me that the one piece I'd be okay with is getting Amon-Ra is because, actually, let me go ahead and we've seen the WoRP here. We've got the idea. To me, when I look at every asset in the deal, Mike, you talked about basically I'd rather have these first to go get myself what I want when I need it potentially, right? Terry McLaurin goes down. That's an asset that you're kind of anchored by now, right? Nobody wants really to buy a hurt Terry McLaurin because the contenders have the age of McLaurin. They don't want an aged hurt player. And the rebuilders are going to try to buy him from you for absolute bottom dollar because who knows, based on the severity of the injury, what we think of his production moving forward. Kittle, Goddard, same story. Goddard nobody cares about anymore anyway. So if he's hurt, it doesn't matter. His value's pretty low regardless. Kittle has the same thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown, to me, there's a little bit of value insulation here where sure, he's definitely going to dip. He's not Chase. He's not Jefferson, where we see like those guys just don't move at all. I do believe that Amon-Ra would dip a little bit, but you still can get out of Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, for probably a first plus to a lot of people, even if the injury happens. So it's more like I'm still, while up tiering, I still am keeping some of that value insulation from the picks. That's the reason I say that with Amon-Ra. But to your point, I mean, if we could predict exactly the WoRP, the upgrade from Goddard last year to Kittle is, I mean, seismic. But to your point also, we don't necessarily know that that's going to happen again for those two players. But I think in general, Mike, I want the other side of this deal because of the fact that Kittle, it's too much value. It's too much value I'm sending away for these guys, in my opinion.
My only hesitation on the Amon-Ra thing is he's right on that precipice. Let's just say he did suffer an injury this year. He is going to dip in value. He starts to become next year at the same time, just like we view A.J. Brown now. Like guys who did produce, who we do kind of like, but now they're only starting to fit a certain team build, right? Like they start to get into that. We look at A.J. Brown like he's 30, man. The dude, Amon-Ra, this time next year, if he suffered an injury, right, we want to fast forward, would be A.J. Brown what he is right now, right? 26 and some change.
Well, A.J. Brown's 27, going to be 28. Amon-Ra's turning 26 this year. I feel like I definitely get your case. I feel like there's at least I've seen.
Don't besmirch the good name of A.J. Brown and add a year to him. He isn't even 27 yet.
He's 27?
No, sir. He's 26.
He's 27. He's 27. He turned 27. He's going to be 28 on June 30th, actually.
What the fuck? All right, Dynasty Data Lab, you got to work on this shit because you're telling me the wrong numbers, man.
It's okay. A.J. Brown, June 30th.
A.J. Brown, hit me up. When's your birthday, bro? Like we got to.
1997. It's 27, going to be 28.
I'll take everything I said back then. Fuck this. Bro. Bad info.
But that's one of the reasons. Like I know it is kind of subtle. It's 2-year difference, but I feel like the 26-year-old Amon-Ra St. Brown will still go for that first plus Where, to your point, if it was A.J. Brown in that scenario, Mike, I wouldn't do this for A.J. Brown because the trade and upgrade doesn't give me value insulation. That's kind of the reason I guess I say that. Let us know what you think of this one.
A.J. Brown's real name is Arthur Juan.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know.
I will say I've heard it, but I had kind of forgotten, and I love that.
I'm sorry, Arthur.
Arthur.
Sorry.
King Arthur. Mike, by the way, the knee problems, we're really going to hope, knock on wood, there's no A.J. Brown issues or Harmon St. Brown issues. Wow. Peter's back. He's kind of wanting to test the waters here on the trade show. What do you think of this deal here? So this is a 12-team Superflex PPR. It's a 1.5 tight end premium. Lineup start 10. So far, all lineups. The league is called the league. Pretty simple, straightforward. Would you want Peter's side here, Rachaad White in the third, or the 211 going away? I think you're muted.
Yeah. If this 211 was used to take a running back, right, this makes a hell of a lot more sense to me. There's only a couple scenarios where I prefer the 211 side, Adam.
Okay.
In most cases, I'm going to be with the Rachaad White in the third because if this is used to take a Kyle Williams, no offense, Kyle Williams, or Jalen Noel, or Jaden Blue, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, in reality too, even like a Bashal Tootin, I would much rather make the bet on Rachaad White still having a role and that future pick, that third for liquidity. Again, another tier down that I really like. The only scenarios, though, where I prefer the 211 is if I could have gotten a Tyler Shuck or I could have gotten a Jalen Milroe. Maybe if you wanted to be like really rosy on the outlook, which I do agree with possibility of happening. America's game just dropped today. We kind of talked about it a little bit.
Sure did.
Sanders,
yep.
Right? If this is one of those quarterbacks that could have a starting position as soon as this year, like as early as this year, but they're going to have some of that value, I'd rather take one of those guys than Rachaad White in the third because they're going to be worth a hell of a lot more than that when they're starting. Like when they're actually starting games and putting up fantasy points than Rachaad White in the third. It'll be tougher to acquire, right? Because we love young quarterbacks, especially once we actually know that they're going to start games. Right now we just speculate that everybody's sitting for a year and they all suck. But if this is for one of those other skill players, right, I don't want to pick on the running backs, but the wide receivers and the tight ends here, give me White in the third on the tier down every day of the week. Yeah.
So when I'm looking at this, the way I kind of view it very similar to you. I think in general, I'm going to go ahead and just take the process play as gross as it feels of the 2-for-1 because that 26th third, basically, Mike, what I'm trying to do here, but threading the needle is I'm betting on Rachaad White giving me for the first half, I'd say, of the season, if not possibly more, similar production, like close enough to where it doesn't really matter that much relative to, Tootin probably would be the best case scenario there, right? But if it's anything else, let's call it Dylan Sampson, let's call it any of the other running backs you might try to take in that range, right? Whoever your choice is, I'm betting that Rachaad White gives me at least that, and then also the third now gives me flexibility to package up with the picks I do have and go buy maybe a legit wide receiver or another running back in case both of these guys got hurt towards the playoffs, right? The one thing, it's probably not process play, but the 211, Mike, we've seen this how many times where people in Dynasty want to chase production, especially tied to youth. So the argument for the 211, if you do select a running back, I think would be this. If that person does start to play well and start to look like they might take over the backfield, I mean, we've seen how many of these guys, like, it's not necessarily process play, but you look at Chase Brown's value, these Bucky Irvings, these guys go bananas. Yep. So that's probably the argument on that side is that the market value can go to a totally different level than obviously Rachaad White can.
And I did a little lab digging. The 211 was Kyle Williams. So, spoiler alert.
I love Kyle Williams, but I still think I want to take these two pieces here, buddy.
My previous statement stands. I want Rachaad White in the third.
Yeah. Everything I said about the running back, you can just still apply it to Kyle Williams here. And I really do like Kyle Williams, Mike. But I will say Kyle Williams honestly is the same conversation as that running back where, like, if Kyle Williams goes, 2 or 3 weeks early in the season, you're going to see his market balloon. So the market value of the 211 can go higher, but that's a process play for me. I'll just go steady, Eddie, boring. Mike, here's a good one. I'm curious what you think here of this, all right? So what I can tell you context-wise, Koopa says this is one of those trades where he loves making these because of the fact that Niner Mafia. But by the way, the trade is a 26 first of Niner Mafia he's receiving for sending away Michael Penix. He says that the Niner Mafia team is the exact type of team in a lineup start 10 that he prefers to bet against. That's why he wanted his first. Mike, NFL Legends Dynasty. We can dig into WoRP. We can dig into the lab. But with that context, what are your thoughts, buddy?
I mean, in general, Michael Penix over that 26 first.
Just a generic 26. You'd rather have Penix, you're saying, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep,
Like,
with you.
If Michael Penix was in this draft class, like, I'd be thrilled to take him at the 105, 106 mark.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, a top 10 draft capital guy would be easily top 5 in this class, right?
He would be above Jackson Dart, no question. I take Jackson Dart at the 106 almost universally, unless the WoRP is something like really stupid, jaded to running backs or, crazy wide receiver scoring. I prefer Penix to that, right? It's super flex quarterback, top 10 draft capital, good offense. We saw nice moments from him, especially at the end of the season last year. It's his starting job. Like, I don't getting a quarterback like that for a first round pick, just a single one. It's theft, it's stealing. The context better be pretty fucking good. All right, cool. Like, I love you, buddy, but
let's go see.
We're not. All right. This may be one of those that they had us in the first half. I don't know, but it's not starting great when you pull up the lab and the dude's sitting at 3 already.
Yeah, well, what I will say, I can kind of understand already, though. There's a more of a jumbled tier, and there's there's a 2 teams in the 65, 6,700. Those are looking crazy. But here's what I'll say when you look at the team, right? Off the rip, Josh Allen, Brock Bowers. There's some reasons why the team's up high. But, man, Trey Benson and Tyrone Tracy in my starting running backs, I don't love that. Even at the wide receiver position, Rome, George Kittle. How about Rome, George Pickens, Khalil Shakir, Jaden Reed. Michael Penix was the quarterback he really desperately needed, too. A-Rich. I still think A-Rich could end up being the starter, but obviously now this secures you a real starter, and A-Rich is your upside play now. Benches to be a lot to be desired, right? A lot to be desired. Mm-hmm. He does still have a 105, so the rookie draft, has not taken place yet. So he's got 105. What do you think when you're looking at this? I definitely understand Coop's point, but I'm curious your thoughts here.
This was where you need context. Look at the bottom of the league. Are there teams that are in much worse shape? Because let's paint the rosiest outcome. You're betting against this guy and you're actually right. Okay. What is this pick next year, right? Like, are there some much worse teams down here that make it a lot tougher? Coop's got the 101, 109, 112. He's dead last right now. Mm-hmm. Do those fix his team enough where this guy could potentially be as bad as not being in there? I say maybe, because Coops does have some really nice picks to add to it. You could see a good year out of him where he could pass him. The other guy right above him has got 103, 104, 108, so he's got some picks. Players on his roster, they're okay. Yeah, so he could potentially pass him, right? We got to be running out of picks, though. The third worst team in the league right now has only got the 107. I wouldn't say that Mr. Niner Mafia is passing this guy for the 101, right? So we can rule this one out.
No, I don't think this, especially if you are where you're positioned for Coop, I don't think 101's in consideration at all, right?
Right. We got a guy with Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Chris Godwin, Ricky Pearsall, Bucky Irving, Charbonnet. Like, not a very good team, but I would say that Niner Mafia is in a much better position than him, so I don't think he's passing him. Now we're at pick 102. I don't know about Joe Moans. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm looking.
No, he's actually got a pretty nice squad.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, he could definitely be worse than Jay Moans, right?
So I guess just quickly off of it, like, you might be looking at the 103 best if you're right on this bet.
I was going to say I think this could have turned into in 26's 103 to 105, probably pretty. I'm not going to say it's a lock for that. I think that's a very realistic range of outcomes for it to be that type of a pick, though.
Let's just say Michael Penix is average this year. Like, he's just whatever, like QB 18, QB 20, right? Something in that range.
Yep.
Next year, trying to future cast it, how much are you getting off of the 103 versus a Michael Penix anyways at that point?
Guy
going to his third year.
you're probably looking at Penix would go. I would say if Penix is quarterback 20 this year, he probably goes in like the 6 next year.
Okay. And the 103 is going to go somewhere.
The third probably?
Round. Yep,
yeah.
Right. You gain a couple rounds.
Yeah.
All right. What if Penix is slightly good? What if he's like QB 14?
Yeah, I mean,
we're looking at what
probably a 4th round pick in that range, right?
Yeah, 4th round. So maybe you gain a round.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's say this is the 108, right?
108 probably is going in like the 6th, 7th round.
There is some payoff. There is some payoff. I'm not going to say it's not. I just don't know. I don't know if that's the bet like I'm wanting to make. Like, oh my God, I got to make this bet. It just doesn't seem as rosy to me. There is a payoff. I can definitely see where there's a path to Coop being right on this one.
Yeah.
There's also a pretty big path to next year. You look back and you're like, either I stuck even or I actually lost this one. Like I would have rather had Michael Penix versus this 108 or 109 pick for sure.
Yeah. I think the one piece of this, though, where if you're in the position that Coop's in, right, the one thing I will give him kudos on is that at this point, when you're where he's at, to me, I think there's definitely scenarios where you don't necessarily end up clean and ahead, meaning like what you were just talking about, right? Like if this pick is a mid to late pick, let's say, 106 to 109, 110, you're probably going to, I would say, more often than not, lose a round or two. However, I think the big thing is, God forbid something was to happen to Michael Penix, he gets hurt. This pick is value insulated, so I think you have a little bit of protection from the worst case scenario by doing this. And also, one of the things that in general, I'm looking to just go ahead and get more liquidity if I have this many picks, just because of this. Like Penix, I have to get somebody that likes or kind of believes in Penix, right? But if you come with 3, 4 liquid first and you don't bring any players that are not high up the board, you're probably going to be able to buy what you want when you want to. So I'll say this. I get it. I'm okay with the trade. I think more often than not, I would have probably tried to finesse something as a little small plus just to make me feel better. But I get the bet. And there's definitely a scenario where you don't win. But I think there's enough on the high end to go ahead and make it. And it gives me a little bit more excess in flexibility to buy what I want. But I will say, man, let's say Penix tears it up. One thing you didn't hit, if somehow Penix ends up being a top 12 quarterback and like Bo Nix, now you're already in the top 3 rounds, right?
Welcome to elite territory.
Yeah.
And
so
buying them for a fucking mid-first is gonna feel like the biggest steal in the world.
Yeah, I mean, this one I think has, and a lot of trades kind of do. I think this one has a lot of variance built in, right? You could see this trade going a bunch of different ways. I get his process, but I don't know. This is one of those where I would have, especially seeing the A-Rich thing, Mike, I would have been like, damn, can I get anything else? Can you get this guy to kick me a second? I give you back a third. I get it in process, though. I don't have any real qualms with it. I would just, say, to your point, doesn't come without risk, but there are some rewards, too. Now, a Sandy Umbrella, it's like, listen, I'm back, man. You the way you guys glaze me, I'm back. Mike, what do you think? Again. What do you think of this trade here? So, we are looking at, there's a lot of words here. This is the Fantasy Menace. It's 12-team Superflex, tiered PPR. There's 0.2 points per carry. Running backs are 0.75 per catch. Wide receiver 1.25 per catch. That's some juice. And the tight end premium 1.75. Lineup start 10, Mike. Would you trade away Tajay Spears, Tet McMillan in 2 seconds to get back Saquon, Downs, Eckler, and a 4th?
Originally, right off the rip, I kind of prefer the Tet and the 2 second side. Now, this is coming from a guy who's not the biggest Josh Downs fan. I love Saquon, and it's just tough with the RB position, right? Because it was so good last year. Can it repeat? The long-term dynasty value, I wasn't the biggest Tet guy, but those S-tier fucking drafted wide receivers, man. Like, we do it every year. I have guys that I don't really like and I fade, and here we are with, Garrett Wilson and Drake London and Chris Olave, like all these guys still being in this fucking conversation, right? No matter what happens to them, we still talk about them 2-3 years later, just as rosy as we did before. The 2 seconds is really nice. I gave up a 4th. The biggest issue I have from the GD side is I have no fucking interest in the Tajay Spears part, but like whatever. So like you completely bumbled that one. Give me another third or something like that. And
Would you rather have Tajay or Eckler?
don't really give a shit, but probably Eckler.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're close enough to where like I really don't care. They're both just like
It would have been a slam dunk for Eckler because he had some really nice moments last year, but then I just happened to read a blurb not too long ago about somebody beat reporter projecting him as a potential roster cut, come training camp, right? And just getting what the fuck? Okay, if that's the case, that's where we're at with them. They like Krosky Merritt that much. Apparently, they still like B-Rob and whatever the fuck else that they're even thinking about cutting Eckler. Like he's starting to get those blurbs, and maybe it's over. Maybe we're done. So in that case, like fuck, I guess Tajay. But I don't really care between the two. I just don't really like the Tajay part. I get it though. If I'm a Sandy Umbrella, and if we pull up his team, if you don't hate Josh Downs as much as I apparently do, and you're already got a contender, fuck man, I'll give up Tet in a couple of seconds and add Saquon to this team because that's the biggest get.
Let's go quickly over to the worp.life lane, and we're going to go check out the lab too. The lab is also really interesting on this trade, but Mike, look at this green line here, buddy.
All right, Sandy Umbrella just wants to get glazed again. Here you go.
This is why. You see, while I love the shirt, it's
Warp
real.
Is life.
Warp is life. Because, Mike, if you tell me this is the scenario where, Mike, this is last year. Now, granted, if you're buying the Madden cover, you do that as your process. Okay, but if you're telling me that I have a chance to have behind the best offensive line, one of the best running backs in football, that could be the best option in all of this league in Warp, and where we're talking about legitimately, Mike, this is the crazy part. I talk about the upper quadrant, especially in lineup leagues. Mike, 6 running backs last year. Josh fucking Jacobs made the upper quadrant in this league. That's crazy. Warp is really heavily leaning with the running back with that 0.2 points per carry.
Yep, big dub on this trade now. As soon as you pulled up Warp. Warp is life, man. And you look at this and this running back line. I'm not saying Saquon's going to repeat that, and I'm not saying running backs as a whole are going to have as good a year as they did last year.
Right.
But you tell me I can get RB3, RB4, RB5 for Tet McMillan. When a rosy outcome in this scenario for Tet McMillan is like wide receiver 18 in his rookie year.
Right.
Like that would be a very good year from him. And I would be very impressed.
If he was a mid wide receiver too, that'd be a great rookie season. Honestly.
It's not fucking close because RB 3 to 5 is going to be somewhere right around that 2 warp range on the multi-year warp right there.
Dude, well here's the thing, multi-year even it's running back. So like if you told me the single year was kind of a little bit more outlierish, which we've seen plenty. All right, I still would honestly probably want Saquon. But if you tell me that multi-year, including the 2022 horrible running back season is in here, this is we don't have to actually go to the lab, I don't think. I was going to say that the lab, one of the things about the lab that we don't need to go there, but it's very interesting. Rarely do I see 2 teams making trades like this where clearly 1 and 2 in the lab as far as the 2 top teams in the league.
And I'll say I just made that analysis without even including the Josh Downs part in this, which I said I'm not the biggest Josh Downs fan, but I understand.
Right.
You could also see a scenario where Tet and Josh Downs next year are producing very similar. A lot of people like Josh Downs.
The warp could be 0.1, 0.2 to either
Josh
one.
Downs could outproduce him.
Yes,
he could fucking outproduce him. He could outproduce him. I'm saying I would trade Tajay Tet 2 seconds for just Saquon Barkley in this league with that warp right now if I'm a Sandy Umbrella and I have anything resembling a fucking championship team, which now you definitely do when you add Saquon to it. And then I just got to free Josh Downs a 4th and an Austin Eckler for who gives a fuck. Right?
Yeah,
so,
and also
those in, I can almost offset Tet with Josh Downs. That's a good trade. That's a good fucking deal.
The other thing too, Mike, interesting, both of these seconds are not his own, and both of these seconds are teams that I'm not going to say that bad things can't happen, but these are both coming from top 4 teams very easily. Yeah, so I couldn't be any more aboard going ahead, and let's go ahead and just make that Sandy Umbrella is wanting. Sandy Umbrella, honestly, man, he's becoming like he's a donut, man, a glazed donut, you know?
I tried to knock him down a peg. I was like, listen, I'm thinking from a standard no-context league. Here's the reasons why I would have done the other. Fuck. You pull up the warp, and it's like, now I look like an asshole.
Well, the crazy part is I was going to pull up the lab, and then I'm like, we can skip it. I got something for you. Warp is life. How about the Die Hard Dynasty 12-team lineup, start 10, Mike? So, CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson, Joe Mixon, and a third. Would you rather have that or a first from Castle Black, Sam Laporta, George Pickens, and a second from Castle Black and lineup start 10? I mean,
hot takey here. Hot takey, lineup start 10. I don't see the warp. I don't know the lab. This is my no context analysis.
We don't need it.
I'd probably trade for CeeDee Lamb for Sam Laporta, George Pickens, a first and a second.
You don't need to give me you don't need to give me Terrence Ferguson. You don't need to give me this random third. You don't need to give me Joe Mixon. I'll take him. I will let you send him my way. But Mike, I would
for sure.
I would pay Sam Laporta, George Pickens, and a first. For sure. No, you don't. If I have to throw a second in, maybe I'd try to get something back, a Ferguson or whatever. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. Like, lineup start 10. Like the tight end, honestly, I don't even think I care what the tight end premium is, frankly.
No, I don't.
I mean, unless it's otherworldly, like 2.5 or something outrageous.
I still probably wouldn't give a shit.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't make the trade, but I'd be like, all right, you got to give me something different for Sammy Ballgame in a typical trade.
This is my boy too, man. This is my boy. Where I'm like, sure.
No, because I don't know. I mean, I know there are some people that are really high on Pickens this year, and I get it. Honestly, but I also think that CeeDee Lamb still is a god-tier receiver, which my other problem is Joe Mixon being a part of this deal makes it to where it's not even anywhere close. Like, if I get tossed in Joe Mixon, and even if he falls off a cliff, after the bye, his production, go take a look, was really sketchy. I don't know if it's, the miles piling up or it was just a bad schedule, but even if he ends up going to complete shit, like, I'm okay with this trade. Like, this one's easy, I think. I don't need warp or... Sometimes you don't need any context.
I don't. And like I said, as soon as you add in the Terrence Ferguson, the Joe Mixon, and the third part to it, like, I'm telling you, I'm not fucking crazy when I say that. Liz, if I had to in a lineup start 10 and I'm a fucking contender, I want CeeDee Lamb and I'm willing to give up Sam Laporta, Pickens, the first and the second, even in June, and go for it. I'm having a real debate with Adam about it, and like our conversations on what extra I can get added do not equal a Terrence Ferguson, a Joe Mixon, and a third. Like, we're talking, like, Adam's telling me, like, well, you were kind of hyping up Deontay Thornton and Chisholm. You got one of those guys, like, can you get those tossed in? Those are like the add-ins I'm getting. Like, could you stash those dude in your Toxie? If I came to Adam and I was like, no, he wants to toss in Terrence Ferguson, Joe Mixon, and a third, Adam's like, why are you still talking to me?
Yeah, dude.
Hit the button, dude.
Even if you told me that Ferguson and the third weren't in there, just Mixon alone, I'm
just Mixon.
I'm
gone.
Then you told me it's all four of these. No, I get it. The third in 2027 definitely is very different than the rest of these pieces. But Mike, I've seen people send legitimate seconds for Terrence Ferguson, so you can swap those that 2027 second of your own out easily.
You can get that back. Get that back.
So,
and even if I don't like Joe Mixon, I can probably get a second for him right now too. I can probably get a second back.
Just for the sake of it, we don't need to go there for the rest of the show, but I just wanted to make sure I ran the warp just to make sure we're not looking at some gimmicky wide receiver line, and that's not the case. It's towards the top. It's a home run slam dunk, man. This is easy. Let's go ahead and let's go to the Castle Black. I love you. By the way, man, that I saw he has set up that Slim Reaper picture, and congrats, buddy. That's an easy dub for you, man. Oh man, Mike, Justin Herbert, a fifth, and Kate Otten. Or a 26 first from Big Red Machine, a 27 first from Big Red Machine, and a 26 second. So this is America's game. Best ball start 12, 2 quarterback, Mike. Where are you at just in general on this? And I want to say, you're in this league, are you not?
No, this is a different America's game.
Oh,
different America's game, not in this one.
Okay, okay. So then without the context, what do you got just on the surface as we start to get into that?
Best ball right now, we start talking, all right? And this might make some people fucking mad. People really do love Justin Herbert, right? And we want to look at different splits or everything. The last thing I remember about Justin Herbert was him losing a fucking playoff game, right? I mean, like losing a playoff game and looking horrible.
Sure.
Right? But even if I go past that, I remember a season under Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh that I warned people about that it was going to be very sketchy for him as far as pass volume goes, right? And I get it. We've had Debro on, and he made his case for Justin Herbert. If you just look at these weeks, this is what I get it. Could the pass-up volume increase? Yeah, I'm fully with it. But then I also look back at what the Chargers actually told us this offseason, and the only thing that I can tell you that they told us is by what they did in free agency and the draft. And what they did in free agency is they went out and they got Najee Harris and they signed him. Not to a huge deal, but they signed him and you went, okay. They talked about bringing back J.K. Dobbins. They ended up not doing them, letting him go to Denver. But then in the draft, they spent their first-round fucking pick on another running back. A big, bruising, hammer athlete running back. So all this talk about, like, could the pass volume increase? Ladd McConkey was a nice surprise. You know, could they add this piece? Could they add another wide receiver?
People are like, Trey Harris, right? There you go.
All that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are telling me is we're doubling down, right? We saw the playoff game when we put it on Justin Herbert's shoulders, and he fucked us. He fucked us hard, right? Why we love the kid, we like his talent, all this. Like, he's very alluring. When we put the game in his hands and we try to become a passing offense, we got fucked. And what we're going to do this year, we're going to hammer the football with our first-round running back and the dude that we signed in free agency to also be a hammer running back. As much as I want to tell the rosy situation about Justin Herbert and be like, this might be, at best, a back-end QB1 for fucking fantasy purposes. Adam just pulled up the
Which is why I pulled up the WoRP, right?
On the WoRP. It doesn't really mean shit. And now we factor in a best ball league, 2 firsts and a second. Adam, I'm probably taking the 2 firsts and the second.
Here's Herbert.
Not really thinking about it.
Here's Herbert last year, 1.1, right? So, I mean, honestly, Mike, because the reason I pulled up WoRP at that time while you were mid-rant, not to get the sound effects over you, so it was more so that I think it aligns with the conversation. Basically, to me, is if you're extremely bullish and you believe Justin Herbert is going to be, because of his talent, in that they're going to basically change what their identity has been, right, for the majority of all the years that they played, and you think he's locked in to, more like top 10, Mike, that's what it has. That's what it's going to have to be for that trade to work out, in my opinion.
Yes.
If that's the case, all right, I think you'll end up winning this deal, because it is, while it is a first, 2 firsts and a second, I'm sorry, 3 legit pieces, a top 10 quarterback here where you can get, WoRP somewhere in the 1.5 range or higher. Okay, I get it. But Mike, the reason I want the picks and the volume is already because we're playing best ball, right? And I'd rather have more shots at the dartboard. But also, Mike, my bet is stacked a little bit to my hand here where, dude, you got to really thread the needle. Like, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that could be good quarterbacks as far as fantasy production goes, to where Justin Herbert has a decent year and is finishing, quarterback 12, quarterback 15 like last year. I think I want the picks here personally before we even really get into much about the lab. I don't know that we have to really do that personally.
I do get, if you want to look at like Justin Herbert to end the year, outside of the playoff game, you just want to look like when they were throwing the ball 30 times.
So here, give me the weeks. This is one of the things that we should do with the WoRP tool. Show you how. Give me the weeks you want me to run.
Sure. Let's look at week 11 on.
Okay, right? So we'll go week 11 to 17. So over here, you can't. We got it zoomed in, but on the left side there, you go down. You can actually run WoRP specific to whatever time of year. So let's run the small sample size just for the sake of argument, right? So let's take a look and see where he finishes here. So we got Goff was the. I'm going to go ahead and clear out some lines just for, making it easy. Lamar's 4, Burrow's 5, Darnold 6. And we'll go ahead and clear out the tight ends too. Baker, Patrick Mahomes, Tua, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. Where is he? Justin Herbert's quarterback 12, Mike, even then.
So 12. That's an increased pass volume.
But that's kind of, I guess, to the point, right? What is what we typically chase at the quarterback position if I want a high-end one? The rushing. Well, the volume, but also the rushing, right?
The rushing, yeah.
I'm going to want the Konami guy. Now, Herbert, I think, has the traits to do that, but we've seen he's not someone that wants to take off and run a ton. He's had injuries that way, too. Like, even if his passing volume increases, he has to be hyper efficient like most other passers do that are volume based on passing to get there. So, even you asked to bring it up when he's throwing the ball a lot more, and here he is at 12.
His 2 best regular season games last year were week 16 and 17. Like, not including week 18 because he had a much better week in week 18. But week 17 or 16 and 17, he was well over 20 points, 23 and 24 points. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that's in common with both of those weeks that also gives me pause. Big pause.
touchdowns?
No. J.K. Dobbins was hurt those weeks.
There you go. That's a good call,
I mean,
actually. Their run game was totally different.
Do you know who the backup running back was? Do you remember them feeding fucking Hassan Haskins?
Yes,
well, Tennessee had cut before the season even started.
Before you made fun of Hassan Haskins, I wanted to make fun of all the Kamani Vidal truthers out there because it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. It wasn't Kamani Vidal either. Like they were devoid of talent once J.K. Dobbins was down. Now J.K. did play in Week 17, but he only had a 50% snap share.
Yeah.
He was a little. They went pass heavy, and those were Justin Herbert's 2 best games without it. Now you add in Najee Harrison and Amarian Hampton, who people think is going to be a stud right out the gate and are drafting him as such.
I mean, listen, he's talented as hell. No, for sure.
I just don't. The Chargers aren't signaling to me that, hey, what we did in Week 16 and 17, that's what we're going to do all season. They're signaling the complete opposite to me, going like, when we did do it, we didn't really like how it worked out. We want to go back to run and Justin Herbert being more of a complementary piece. And if we're talking about a quarterback that's going to be 11, 12, 13, 14, like on the WoRP scale in this league, in this format, and then you add in best ball, I'm taking the 2 first and the second and just keeping that flexibility. Because I can go buy, you just saw, you can buy a fucking Michael Penix for a first, obviously. Coop just threw that one out there. I just tossed a random one in there.
So that, buddy, that's where I was just going to say. One of the reasons I'm so about WoRP, like the WoRP tool, specifically some of the things that we have on our tool that we offer with the WoRP tool is, it just shows to me, and I'm like stronger and stronger based on how many different variables can be in leagues. Like if you told me we're talking vanilla scoring, it's a start 9, start 10, and it's a like 6 point per passing touchdown. The quarterback floor for almost all of them, right, gets to that point where it's like, dude, okay, yeah, we're talking pay up for a lot of these quarterbacks, Herbert even included. But man, when you get to a best ball league like this is why the WoRP tool is so crazy, because generic conversation around Herbert being worth a 2 first and a second, I don't necessarily disagree with the generic conversation of that value. But when I'm looking at the WoRP tool of this league, Mike, you hit it. You're as big of a quarterback pusher as there's out there, and you're like, listen, no, this is not where I want Justin Herbert for 2 first and a second here, period, right? I think the WoRP tool, especially in the quarterback land, has shown me like lines where it's the haves or have-nots at quarterback in some of these leagues, and this would be one of those. I don't want to send 3 legit pieces to have to get for him to have to only be a have, and I don't think he's going to be that guy. So I couldn't subscribe more to pushing the WoRP tool when I see a trade like that, right? I think WoRP tool is huge for that type of a trade.
It's fucking massive. The other end of the spectrum is roster construction and where to put your assets in a best ball league. And people don't understand this yet in these leagues. Even if you're a contender, Adam, I pulled up the lab on Big Red Machine, okay? Like, great starting lineup. I get it. And his quarterbacks are now Justin Herbert, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels. Like, you're fucking with this team. Like, you're feeling really good.
Sure.
Here's the first thing you and I always do. Let's go look at the bench, man. Running backs coming off first off the board in the bench. Madison, Raheem Mostert, D. Mercado, LaQuint Allen, Kyle Mullings. Then you go to the wide receivers, and it's Darnell Mooney, Adam Thielen, Jalen Tolbert, Javon Baker. Like,
dude,
no, man.
You know what's crazy is because you're right about the bench, right? Roster construction-wise needs some cleanup, a lot of cleanup. But here's the crazy part. Like, that's also not factoring in that Jack Besh is in your starting lineup.
Your starting lineup, yes.
Kyle Pitts and Cade Otton are your 2 tight ends, which, like, even in a dual tight end league, Mike, I'm okay with Pitts, Otton. But, dude, if you're talking to – here's the thing. I'll go to those type of tight ends if I can make sure I have – even Theo Johnson I'm okay with. But I feel like I only have 3. I would need to have, a little more depth at this tight end position. You know what it is? Even if you – this is the roster I have. You can work through cleaning up some of this bench up. But basically the point is with that, Mike, is that it's a misappropriation of the 3 legit assets you sent away to Justin Herbert, right?
It is. You misused him pretty big. Yep. Like, I get it. You wanted the quarterback depth. Justin Herbert looks shiny, but, dude, let me go find what Matt Stafford's cost is from somebody in this fucking league. Then I just send one of those seconds and just get Matt Stafford, add another quarterback, because I want these first to be able to add depth to this team because I'm going to suffer injuries. There's going to be bye weeks. It's a best ball league. I want depth. I want depth. And I want it coming out my fucking ears. I don't want to look at a starting lineup that's got Jalen McMillan in that motherfucker when they just drafted Emeka Egbuka in the first round and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin haven't left yet. That does not make me feel all sunshine. I might have a wide receiver 4 on an NFL team in my fucking starting lineup in a best ball league. That is not a great place to start.
Listen, honestly, it's kind of like this where, at the moment, in a lineup league, you could probably get away with my beard if it's, thin and trimmed. But best ball, you want mics, okay? There's no depth here, buddy. I feel like I'm shaved, You don't want that type of depth here in a best ball league. You want Mike's girth and all that depth, all that velocity, ferociousness in that beard.
Let's go.
That's what I want, man. That's what I want in a best ball league. And I'll tell you this, too. If you're at this point, you got to be careful trading with that guy, Paul. That guy, Paul, he knows what he's doing out here. He's sniping people left and right.
He pays attention.
Absolutely,
And I see it when he sends me dog shit trade offers. Together.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, listen, Paul, we're not really at negotiation time, but willing to see another offer. But I love seeing it, man. That's one of those trades, Mike, where I think, depending on your league type, you could have totally different conversations, right? You tell me the WoRP's crazy at quarterback, like, okay, fucking give me Justin Herbert, even in best ball. But that WoRP line, I'm out, man. I'm out.
Yep. Only thing I got before the people, Patreon's popping, man. We got Savage Semester going on. Great time every Thursday night at this point. We're pretty solid here. We're recording this Thursday evening, early evening. But Thursday night tonight, you'll do the third Savage Semester. It's popping, man. And for one of these times, too, in the Dynasty cycle, for anybody watching this, you guys kind of understand the Dynasty cycle. We're right after the NBA Finals. Some people are baseball fans. I get it, right? There's no hockey. Like, we get some racing. We get some golf. There's no football. There's no OTAs going on. We're just sitting here biding our fucking time until training camp opens so we can start doing it again. Mm-hmm. This is the perfect time to be in the Savage tier because it's Dynasty startup season just out of pure fucking boredom and nothing else going on.
Right.
Everybody wants startups right now. It's the perfect place to come. Hey, I'm on the clock. Who the fuck do I take? Here's the WoRP. Like, guys, help me. Help me build a fucking monster squad. It's the place to be if you want a championship.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, you don't need filler. We're the filler, okay? We've got you. Come to Savage Semester. Mike, it's a blast. We're going to have another fun week this week on Thursdays. And during the summer, all the way leading up until the Expo, we'll be getting after Savage Semester every Thursday. Also, if you do want to come check out the Patreon, go put your trades in the Completed Trades channel where you can be a part of the show. You want to go see if you can trade with Mr. Wonderful and put it on the show? Good luck to you. Also, better luck to you when you go get signed shit than to me. I love signed memorabilia, but I'm kind of taking a hiatus because I've been cursing people. But look at Mike's, man. Look at all the unbelievable signed helmets, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
We're doing all right, man. I got Brees Hall, I got Puka. They're still going strong. The rest of it's retired players. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. But here's the thing. You go to the box breaks, and if you're winning a box breaks, it's like winning a trade on the trade show. You're plentiful. You're taking a huge W. If you're not as into signed memorabilia, I know you gotta be into some certified shit. Go get yourself the all-white JJ McCarthy. Be one of the different ones, right? Get number 9. Looks clean. Not that many people out there, other than maybe Thor, got the whole. I'm sure Thor has every single one of JJ McCarthy's jerseys. But the certified shit, go straight to Fanatics. Just like Jay Jackson, go tell him we sent you. Go get yourself some gear leading up to the season. Other than that, buddy, that's all I got. We will see you back here every single week. Same time, same place for the Dynasty Trade Show. We're out of here. Peace.